Friends, are you planning a trip and wondering where to go? There are a lot of options, but be careful. We won't be welcome everywhere. Watch my video until the end, and you will find out which countries you should avoid. The U.S. State Department issues personalized travel advisories for more than 200 countries around the world, constantly updating them based on various risk indicators such as health, terrorism, and civil unrest. Travel advisory levels range from Level 1, which means take normal precautions, to Level 4, which means do not travel there. In 2024, 19 countries around the world have a Level 4 recommendation, do not travel. In Tier 4 countries, the U.S. government may have very limited ability to intervene if the safety of travelers is compromised. Here are the top areas where the U.S. government is advising against traveling right now. Afghanistan. The Central Asian country combats terrorism, the risk of wrongful detention, kidnapping, and crime, according to the State Department. U.S. citizens are particularly at risk of wrongful detention and kidnapping. In 2022, the government resumed public floggings and executions, and women's rights are disappearing under Taliban control. The U.S. Embassy in Kabul ceased operations in August 2021. Since the Taliban took control, many forms of international assistance have been cut off. Meanwhile, Afghanistan's deadliest earthquakes so far this year have killed more than 2,400 people in 2023, as the country continues to face years of severe drought. Burkina Faso. Terrorism, crime, and kidnapping plague the West African country. Terrorist attacks can target hotels, restaurants, and schools with little warning, and some parts of the country are under a state of emergency. In late November 2023, hundreds of people died in clashes between state security forces and rebels near the country's border with Mali. In June, more than 2 million people in Burkina Faso were forced to flee their homes due to violence linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group. Central African Republic. Although there have been no specific incidents of violence or crime against U.S. citizens, violent crimes and sudden closures of roads and borders are common. The advisory states that the Bangui Embassy's limited ability to support U.S. citizens, combat crime, civil unrest, and kidnapping is a factor in its assessment. Recent UNICEF data shows that in 2022, the country will have the worst access to drinking water of any country. Myanmar. Armed conflict and civil unrest are the main reasons for avoiding travel to the Southeast Asian country, which saw a military coup in early 2021. Limited healthcare resources, wrongful detentions, and areas with landmines and unexploded ordnance are also considered risk factors. Gaza. Hamas, a State Department-designated foreign terrorist organization, controls most of the Gaza Strip, which borders both Israel and Egypt. On October 7, 2023, Hamas militants breached the border with Israel, killing hundreds of civilians and soldiers in a brazen attack that stunned Israelis. According to Reuters, on October 10th, Israel carried out the most brutal airstrikes in the 75-year conflict on the Gaza Strip. The conflict has since escalated into war between Israel and Hamas, with regular Israeli airstrikes causing massive civilian casualties in the Gaza Strip. The UN estimates that as of mid-December, nearly 85% of Gaza's population had been forced to flee their homes. The region continues to face shortages of food, water, electricity, and medicine, with the situation considered far beyond a humanitarian crisis. The State Department warns of terrorism and armed conflict in Gaza. Haiti. In July 2023, the State Department ordered all non-emergency U.S. government employees and their family members to leave the U.S. Embassy in Port-au-Prince in response to the increased risk of kidnappings and violent crime in the country, as well as armed conflict between gangs and police. The travel advisory states that kidnappings often involve ransom negotiations, and U.S. citizen victims suffer physical harm during kidnappings. The travel advisory also states that U.S. citizens in Haiti should leave Haiti as soon as possible, given the current security situation and infrastructure issues. Iran. Terrorism, kidnapping, and civil unrest are risk factors for anyone traveling to Iran, while U.S. citizens are especially at risk of arbitrary arrest. U.S. and Iranian citizens such as students, journalists, and business travelers have been arrested on charges of espionage and threatening national security. The number of executions in Iran has increased sharply between 2021 and 2022, bringing the country's total number of executions for the year to nearly 580. Iraq. The State Department cites terrorism, kidnappings, armed conflict, and civil unrest as the reason for placing the country at level 4. Iraq's northern borders and its border with Syria are particularly dangerous. As the conflict in neighboring Israel escalated in October, attacks on Iraqi military bases housing U.S. and other international forces have increased. In October 2023, non-emergency U.S. government employees and eligible family members were ordered to leave the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. Libya. Since the fall of the dictatorship more than a decade ago, Libya has faced internal conflict between armed groups in the east and west. Armed conflict, civil unrest, crime, kidnapping, and terrorism are all risk factors. U.S. citizens have been the target of kidnappings for ransom, and terrorists have attacked hotels and airports frequented by Westerners. The U.S. Embassy in Tripoli ceased operations in 2014. In mid-September 2023, floods killed thousands of people in eastern Libya. In the second half of 2023, clashes between armed groups escalated across the country, including in the capital Tripoli and Benghazi. Mali. Following military coups in 2020 and 2021, crime, terrorism, and kidnapping have become common threats in the landlocked West African country. Military groups in the country are spreading terror, using violence against women, and violating human rights. Democratic elections were due to take place in February 2024, but Mali's military junta has postponed these plans indefinitely. In December, the UN officially ended its decade-long peacekeeping presence in the country. Hundreds of mission personnel have been killed since 2013. Mexico. Each state in Mexico is rated separately for travel advisory levels. 6 of Mexico's 32 states are in Tier 4: Colima, Guerrero, Michoacán, Sinaloa, Tamaulipas, and Zacatecas. Crime and kidnapping are listed as major risk factors throughout the country. As of October, nearly 112,000 people were missing across the country. North Korea. U.S. passports are not valid for entry into, through this country, home to one of the world's oldest dynastic dictatorships. The Level 4 designation is based on the continuing serious risk of arrest and prolonged detention of U.S. citizens. In July 2023, an American soldier fled across the border into North Korea, where he is believed to be in North Korean custody, becoming the first American detained in the North in nearly 5 years. He was returned to U.S. custody in September 2023.